So what I'm going to do in this tutorial is show you how to make this product, and it's made out of two separate parts which are components, and they interlock with each other by means of a slot, as you can see if I take them apart. So the first thing I'm going to do is use the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a square, and it's going to be 300 by 300. So down in the bottom right hand corner, type in 300, 300, hit the return key, and there's my square. Now it looks really tiny, and that's because at the moment there's not really any way of telling what scale I'm in. So if you make something that's the correct size but on screen it looks really tiny, you could zoom in, but what you can also do is go here to this tool up here. It's called Zoom Extents. It's also down here if you want, and just click once and it brings the whole thing that you've just drawn into view. Now I want to make a symmetrical object here, so what I'm going to do is draw a line down the middle. Now to do that I just touch the edge with my pencil, drag along, and eventually I'll snap right there onto the midpoint. I then click once and then drag down, and our line is green, which means I'm parallel to the green axis, and I snap onto the midpoint at the other side. Now because I'm making a symmetrical object, what I'm going to do is draw half my object here and then duplicate it and use it to create the other side. So what I'm going to do here is draw half of my shape as accurately as I can and then delete anything that I don't need. So I'm going to add some curves here, and you can see that I'm locking onto the midpoint there and then snapping onto the edge and dragging out. I'll then take a line, click once, and then snap onto the edge. What I'm going to do now is create a radius which creates a smooth transition between this line and this curve. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see exactly what I'm doing, and I'm going to take the arc tool and make sure that I snap onto there, so it says on edge. I'm going to then choose, and then if I drag down it'll go blue, and then I'm tangent to the edge. That means then that I'm tangent to this edge. I'm not quite tangent to this edge, but it should be okay. So now my curve that I've just put in, my arc, will have split this line, so I can just delete what I don't need here. It will have also split this curve. I can also delete what I don't need there. What I'm also going to do now is add a line in here, just to make that a little easier later. You'll see why in a moment. And I'm also going to add a little indentation up top here, just by drawing some simple lines, and that's my shape. It's quite easy now, once you've actually drawn that half shape, to do the rest in order to make it into a whole shape. You do need to be careful though that you've made an enclosed shape. The easy way to check that is just take the select tool, click on the shape, and if it selects separately from all the rest of the square, then you know you've successfully created your shape. What you then need to do is delete everything that's around your shape, and the easy way to do that is just delete the lines, because by deleting the lines you also delete the surfaces, and you can either select them all at the same time or do them one by one, which is what I'm doing here. So there you have your shape. You now need to duplicate it to make the other half. First thing to do is select the whole thing. 1, 2, 3 clicks should do that. Then choose the move tool. Now what I'm going to do now is press once on the option key. You see the plus sign appears above the move tool. That means when I move this shape, I'm also going to make a copy of it. So let's go ahead and do that. Pick it up by an endpoint, and then I'm going to move it so I'm on the red axis, so I'm moving it perfectly horizontally. There we go, that should be fine. And now I need to flip it over so it's the other way. Now to do that flip I need the rotate tool, but first what I need to do is draw a little cube, and you'll see why later. So it doesn't really matter where I draw it, I just need, and it's not going to be part of my model, but it is going to be very useful to me, and you'll see why. So again I'm going to select the thing I want to rotate, and I'm going to take the rotate tool. Now what I need to do is use my cube in order to get my rotate tool into the correct axis, which in this case is the green axis. And now I hold down shift, which will keep it in the green axis as I move back to my piece. So now I'm going to select this point. I can now let go of the Shift key, drag out, click again, and then you're kind of left with a handle which will allow you to rotate the thing around. Now, to be on the accurate side, I'm going to type in 180 and hit the Enter key, and now I've rotated my piece by 180 degrees. Once I've done the rotation, all I need to do then is move the two parts together. So I'm going to triple click on there to select, choose the Move tool, and I also need to be very accurate in how I put these two parts together. So I need to pick up by this corner and then make it sure that it locks directly onto this corner here. So pick it up by this corner, move across, and then when I snap to there, my two halves are joined together. So you can see that they also have two different colors. So it means what I need to do is choose this line and then delete it. And what should happen is that they should then both become one surface. So we have now a perfectly symmetrical piece because we've made it out of two identical halves. And we can now move on and make this into a 3D object. Now it may seem odd, but I'm now going to put back the line that I just took away in the previous part of the tutorial. Now this line, because it goes from midpoint to midpoint, represents the exact dead center of the piece. Now when we make this into a 3D object, we have to take into account the thickness of the material that it's going to be made of. I know that the two parts are going to overlap at the exact center. I also know that the material is 9mm thick. So I can use this center line to help me make the outline of the required slots. First thing I'm going to do is select the line, and then I'm going to move and copy it twice. So again, to move and copy, hold down the Option key, click once, and drag across. Now, I only need to move this by 4.5mm. And then I'm going to select the middle line again, and move it again by copying it the opposite direction by 4.5mm. If I then delete the middle line, my remaining two lines are 9mm apart. What I'm then going to do is draw a line from the midpoint of here to the midpoint of there. This is going to help me make the slots which I need to put the whole thing together. What I now need to do is select the whole thing again and make a copy. So I'm going to triple click. That should select everything. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to take the Move tool, hit the Option key once, the plus sign appears, which means I'm going to move and copy. I'm going to pick it up by this endpoint here, and then I'm going to move across my copy until I'm at a safe distance away from my existing piece. The reason I've made two copies now is because the two parts now become different. We're going to use these lines that we drew to make the slots where they overlap. However, the slot in this part is going to be different from the slot in this part. In this one, we delete this line to get rid of that surface, and then these two lines are also surplus to requirement. In the other one, we do the opposite. Here I'm going to delete this line, which deletes that surface, and then also these two lines. What I'm going to do now is use the Push-Pull tool to make them 9mm thick. So Push-Pull tool, drag up, press 9, press return, again over here, type 9, hit the return key, and then you have them both to exactly the right thickness. I then need to make them into a component, so triple click, make component. I'm going to simply call it 1. Here again, triple click, right click, make component, and I'm going to call that one 2. The last thing I'm going to do is assemble the two parts. I first need to make them stand up. To do that, I need to use the Rotate tool. Now you can see that I've drawn another cube. It's going to help me rotate them. So first I'm going to select my two pieces, 1 and 2. I need to use the Rotate tool, and I'm going to use my cube to get into the correct axis. So I'm now on the red axis, so I hold down the Shift key and move my Rotate tool to define my center of rotation. It's going to be that corner. Click once, drag out, and then I can rotate them by hand if I want, but what I'm going to do is just type in 90, hit the return key, and now they're both standing up. What I then need to do is rotate component number 2, that's this one, in the blue axis. Now it's already selected, so I'm going to go to the Rotate tool, and on my cube, select the blue axis, hold down Shift, move to my component, and I'm going to choose that midpoint there. Click once, let go of the Shift key, drag out, click again, and then I can rotate that way by 90 degrees. Now in assembling these two parts together, I need to be very accurate, and I need to think too. So I'm just going to move it roughly to start with, so that it's in generally the right position. I'm now going to zoom in as really far, so you can really see what I'm doing. Now, what I need to do to make these two pieces really accurately fit together is to take this corner and locate it on this corner here. So, to do that, I need to pick up my piece by the corner where I want to locate it, and then move it to that point there. When it snaps, I know that I'm in the correct position. If I zoom out again, then I should have two pieces which are nicely located on each other, and that's pretty much it. I'm done.